Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the South Park Center and I'm here with Ryan with his movie After the Tone. Let's take a look at the clip.
You have problems, Daniel. I trusted you and really thought you'd change. You can't. So here we are. Probably get this after you leave the bar.
Or after they kick you out again, whichever comes first.
You probably won't even be home tonight. If you are, it's probably Jim escorting you home again.
Ryan, thank you very much for being here and welcome to Los Angeles. You just moved here from the East Coast. Congratulations on your film. It was so brilliant and I rarely get to see a film from that perspective, so thank you for that. For those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
So my film's about a man named Daniel who has just suffered the loss of his wife, and he's reliving her last moments through a series of voice messages that she left him before she passed away. From start to finish, it's a very, very moving film, and as I said, I'm so glad that you made it because I feel like we just don't see this rawness of what one goes through by themselves. We kind of see the actual, maybe the account of when it happens and maybe the family support, but the times when it's really hard when you're by yourself and things remind you of experiences that you've had. And I think it will help a lot of people and also people that have gone through loss as well. I really do, and educate others. Where did the inspiration come for you in saying, I want to make a film about this? So the inspiration came from this need to tell a story about what happens after like that traumatic experience. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really about what happened to Daniel, the main character. It was kind of about how he dealt with what happened, and that kind of, like you said, what do you do when you're alone by yourself after you've had moments like these? How do you internalize that and process it by yourself? And I'm kind of fascinated by that. So everybody's been through stuff that's traumatic and that's affected them personally, and I think it's important to talk about how you deal with that by yourself, not necessarily how you deal with that with others, but kind of that internal like coping. Yeah,
honestly, it was so refreshing to see because sadly we've all going to go through or have been through that or know someone that's been through that experience, and it's a really, really difficult time when someone you loved has passed away or for whatever reason. And I think sometimes we don't realize what people go through that have experienced such tragedies as that, but then also, you know, everyone's got a different way of reacting to things. And this was just one example of Daniel and how he reacted to losing his wife, and honestly, even things that, like you say, it was a series of voicemails, so things that, you know, there's certain things that people long for and hold on to, like voicemails of people that they've lost. I thought it was so powerful. I was so moved by it, and I think anyone that's been through something like that or knows someone that's gone through that can almost help with them better as well. And that it's okay to be the way you are and experience the way you do things. I thought your actor was, you know, your cast was just brilliant, really good. How did that come about?
So, funny story, this was a last minute casting because I had an actor drop on me.
Oh, you did?
Last minute,
wow.
Yeah. So I saw his audition tape for one of my friend's films, and he wasn't cast for it, but I saw him and I was like, he would be really good for what I'm going for. Mm-hmm. So I just emailed him right when I lost my actor and was like, hey, do you mind like sending me a clip of you reading these sides quickly? And within like 24 hours he did it, and I knew he was the guy.
The guy.
Yeah.
What is that? Because honestly, we take it for granted sometimes when we see it on the screen, but you don't realize that you've also lost your cast member like minutes before it's going to happen. It must feel really like scary in that thought when you've lost your actor, but then it must feel fantastic when you just like, oh my goodness, because I couldn't imagine him not doing that role because it was brilliant. So that must have felt good for you.
Yeah, it's good to get on set and see performances that you really like and be able to work with somebody who can take
direction without having, you know, studied the role a whole lot, which was obviously important for something like this.
And speaking of direction, I thought it was very well directed, and of course you had to have an actor that was extremely vulnerable to dealing with this. It was so painfully believable. How do you as a director work with your actor in that process, particularly for the scenes he had to do?
So everybody's been through stuff, and being able to have somebody that can channel that a little bit more easily was important for me. And John, the actor, he was a musician, and I worked with musicians a lot, and they're very good at channeling what they've been through into their music. So the fact that he's now an actor, and he has that ability helped me like tremendously when I was working with him.
Oh, that's cool. So he took your sort of music ability, and that's really cool. That's really interesting. What was kind of the biggest challenge you faced? Obviously you had that. Was there anything in your production that you kind of had to deal with as well? Was it just kind of, was that part a bit smoother?
So it was getting the location to be what it needed to be in a short period of time. We had 8 hours to shoot it, and it was 2 half days, so it was only 4-hour chunks.
Yeah.
And then we used all natural light, so the sun's not going to be the same the next day. So we had to shoot everything and make sure it was good, and just a lot of stuff had to be worked around in that short period of time where we're rushing to get a shot and we didn't have time. And that was probably the most challenging part, was the time constraint we had with using natural lighting too. So.
Yeah. Well, I think also as well, I think you're a sort of person that will just make it happen regardless of anything that you've been through. I mean, you mentioned last night you had issues with locations and people and all that kind of stuff and some different experiences, but it must feel good after going through all those experiences to then be like, oh, I've done this. And how does it feel going through all of that and then seeing your film, you know, on a big screen in front of an audience? That must feel really good.
I used to be a musician, and so it's similar to writing something and then finally like hearing it for the last time, for the first time, I mean. And just seeing something you've made on a big screen, it's a completely different experience. It's finally, you get to sit down and actually watch it. And I don't think, so I edited the film as well. So I've seen it 1,000 times. But, you know, I've seen it on computer screens and things like that, and it's different seeing it on that kind of scale, and also seeing reactions from people, that kind of thing.
Well, speaking of reactions, like, you know, sometimes you make a film just purely upon the subject, but was there kind of something you wanted your audience to take from your film? Because your film was very powerful, and I think will resonate with a lot of people, and I think also help people that have suffered from a lot of loss, that it's okay to kind of react the way that you'll react to grieving. Is there something you kind of wanted from your audience to take from your film?
So one of the big things was cope with things how you need to cope with them. Everybody has their own ways of dealing with it, but I wanted this kind of like hope that things can get better. So don't, you know, seek help if you need it. And that's why my film ends the way it does. It kind of ends with a little bit of hope instead of what I've seen, at least a lot of different films do, which is the kind of more grim outlook on how things are.
No, I love that. I really felt you gave us the hope of like, it's okay not to be okay. You know, if you're going through even mental health issues, just going with things that you've experienced in your life or grieving, and then there is an essence of hope. And I think, you know, sometimes when you've gone through a horrible experience, you tend to lose hope. And I think you gave that to us at the end. And I just think it's a very important film that a lot of people could watch that have gone through an experience like that. So, you know, congrats on you. What is next for you?
So I'm planning on making a feature next summer, hopefully. 2020. I'm just working on finalizing the script and getting investors on board and that kind of thing.
Are you staying the same kind of genre, or?
I am big on mental health. So this next film is about an elderly man with dementia and his son. kind of it's a road trip film about them trying to get to Newport, Rhode Island, because his father thinks he's the 5th wealthiest man in the world.
Oh, okay.
So he, it's kind of this, you'd think from just hearing about the film sometimes that it maybe romanticizes this kind of like dementia and mental health problems in the elderly, but there's a big sense of realism in it, and how it's dealing with how we kind of try and romanticize these things with our loved ones, or we don't like listening to doctors sometimes when they're talking about our parents or our grandparents, and it's like this battle with oneself on. I think a lot of times we romanticize mental health problems, and when you hear a story about an old man who thinks he's the 5th wealthiest man in the world, some people might kind of smirk a little bit or say like, oh, that's going to be kind of interesting and funny and that kind of thing. And that's how the main character in my next film kind of approaches this thing, and he soon realizes that it's not all, you can't just try and feed into someone's delusion and hope it goes your way. You know, other people, mental health is complex, and you can't predict everything. And
right, and everyone's different and reacts differently to it as well. Well, you know what I love is you're giving us challenging stories to tell, and I think that is important. You know what I mean? We need to be challenged in audience, but also educated as well. And I think mental health is sadly still a weird taboo that is not dealt with the best by the people, and I think we could do better at that. So the more we get to see of this, I think the better we can also understand what one goes through, and everybody's different too. I'm excited. I'm glad about that. Now, obviously, you've just moved from Rhode Island to Los Angeles, so welcome. I'm looking forward to seeing much more of your work here. What have you learned as a filmmaker, maybe from this film, or something you go by, you know, in your filmmaking world that you could maybe share with our audience?
So I think for a lot of filmmakers, you just have to find a way to do what you want to do, and don't place roadblocks in front of yourself. With After the Tone, it was one actor in one location, because that was the only way that I knew for sure I was going to be able to get it done, and get it done well. So it's just make what you want to make and figure out ways to make it as easy on yourself as possible, because independent filmmakers typically don't have millions of dollars to throw around. So
I love that. You know, we don't hear that often enough about, listen, I mean, myself included, put roadblocks in front of things, and I think we all do to a certain extent for whatever reason. So we don't hear that enough. So I'm really glad that you shared that with us, and that you found a way just, you know, to make it possible. So thank you for your TED Talk. I appreciate it. But no, good luck with your feature. Please, we look forward to seeing it, and congratulations on After the Tone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.